in the past, bullying happened at school, but then you can avoid it when you get home. But now, because of social media, it follows you. So can you help us understand, because you know a lot more about this than I do, what are some examples of this that you have seen within youth culture, within whether it's schools or even youth group? Like, how have you seen harassment that converted into bullying?
Yeah, it's happening in all different avenues. And what they do is either they can just be verbally mean. They can do it through creating some pictures, now with AI or even Photoshop or whatever, they can create some embarrassing pictures and send that out.
So if these things are happening, what are some of the emotional or psychological implications cyberbullying takes on the lives of young people? Welcome to Baffled. Today we're going to be tackling cyberbullying, prevention and intervention. All right, Jason.
Hello.
Cyberbullying is a thing. You and I were talking off camera on the reality that in the past, bullying happened at school, but then you can avoid it when you get home. But now, because of social media, it follows you. So can you help us understand, because you know a lot more about this than I do, the different forms of cyberbullying?
Well, I mean, cyberbullying is the way I like to say it to the teens is being mean behind the screen. So any type of bullying that can happen behind a screen, it could be a cell phone, it could be a laptop, it could be a tablet. And so it happens in various forms. It can happen through social media, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. It can happen even on YouTube, or it can happen on video games. It can happen any type of conversation, whether it's out in the open where everybody can see, or like an inbox or a DM. That's where it's happening. So it comes in many shapes and forms for sure.
Okay, so because of your definition, being mean behind the screens, it reminds me a few years ago about the idea of Twitter fingers. Back when Twitter was a thing that people would make fun of each other or diss each other on Twitter as opposed to in person.
Right.
It's as if social media has emboldened people to be tough, but and not deal with real life consequences. And it's a sad reality, because we even see it in hip hop culture. I was listening to a podcast the other day where rappers nowadays are rappers or entertainers who are trying to be street guys, and the people in the past were street guys who actually became rappers. So there's this idea now that because of cyberbullying, we want to project this idea of toughness but behind the screen.
Yes.
So what are some examples of this that you have seen within youth culture, within whether it's schools or even youth group? Like, how have you seen harassment that converted into bullying?
Yeah. Well, and kind of piggyback off what you said about the toughness part. It's actually easier to bully someone online than it is in person, because in person, then there's no fallout, there's no repercussions, because I mean, fists can be swinging or whatever, but behind the computer screen or the cell phone, you're safe, because you can say whatever you want and not have to deal with the backlash a lot of times. So it's kind of that safe space in order to do that. And then of course in person, it's a different story. So it's happening in all different avenues. And what they do is either they can just be verbally mean. They can do it through creating some pictures, now with AI or even Photoshop or whatever, they can create some embarrassing pictures and send that out. Or they can even take a picture of them, and it's very unflattering picture, and then send that around as well. And so the sending part, it can transpire from just randomly sending it to somebody, or you can now airdrop it. So you could be on the bus on the way to school, and you can just hit that airdrop and just airdrop it to several people, just to embarrass, just to make fun, to exploit, and it's just become just such the game has changed since we were young, for sure. And it's disgusting at times.
So what, as a result, because we mentioned on our last episode that the frontal lobe is not fully developed by 25. So young people are highly impressionable, very sensitive. So if these things are happening, what are some of the emotional or psychological implications cyberbullying takes on the lives of young people?
Oh, absolutely. So it really, when a child is bullied, it can really mess with them psychologically. I mean, obviously, it can lead to insecurities. It can lead to depression, anxiety, all these things that it can generate. Because a lot of times when they are being bullied, they don't tell anybody about it. And so what happens is it becomes their private world. They don't want their parents to know. They don't want anybody to know. And so they think that they can deal with it on their own, and instead of letting somebody know and let them into that world. You know, one of the stories that we share in the classroom is a beautiful young lady named McKenna Brown, who unfortunately took her life because of cyberbullying. Mm-hmm. And one of the things her mom says as a plea is, if you're going through something, please talk to your parents. Your parents are there for you. They're there to help. But again, we just feel like, oh, I don't want to get them involved. Oh, this is not their problem. This is not their battle. I can deal with this. And a lot of times they can't. They don't have the tools or the skills in order to deal with it the proper way.
Yeah. So we're even seeing, again, there was a book that we mentioned in the last podcast called The Anxious Generation. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Haidt talks how there was a spike. And like, if you look at the spike for teen suicides, mm-hmm. or teen mental health epidemics,
right,
and cyberbullying, the spike went after 2012. Mm-hmm. And if you look at 2012, that was when the iPhone went from, they had two forms, the 5S and the 5C. And people used to say the 5C, the C meant for cheap, but the C meant for yeah. color. But it was the more affordable option out of the two. And right. what that did was empower parents to give their child a smartphone, mm-hmm. without understanding the repercussions of that. And because of the access to the smartphone, we saw, as we mentioned in the last episode, the rise in anxiety and depression and mm-hmm. all of these things, and now teen suicides.
Yes.
So, what can we as youth workers, parents, and schools do? Because we want to communicate that the lines are open. You can talk to us about anything and everything.
Right.
But you and I were teenagers before.
Absolutely.
And we didn't view adults as having our best interests in mind. We thought that if we were to talk to a school counselor, and then my parents knew that this was going to be the end of the world for me, because mm-hmm.
What's that saying? Snitches get
stitches. So I don't want to be labeled as a snitch.
Right.
But there is an idea where kids truly do not understand that if they were to just speak up, lives can actually be saved. So we're talking, how can we help teenagers understand that? How can we foster, I'll say it this way, how can we foster an environment that makes them feel safe?
Right.
That you went above and beyond to the point that you made them feel safe, that they can talk to you about anything and everything, whether it's an addiction, or whether it's a conflict that they have, or whether it's, I'm being bullied, and what can we do? What are some things we can do with setting boundaries, or are there tools to report and prevent these things?
Yeah, no, all good stuff. I mean, so yeah, I think it's very important to have that open line of communication with your kids, that when they do struggle or they do going through something, they'll come to you. And if every time they come to you, you're there ready to yell and discipline and just be on the attack, they're going to recluse. They're going to go mm-hmm. back, and they're not going to be open. So if you could somehow, some way start dialogue with them, just even 5 minutes in the car, just asking questions. And there's a lot of good resources out there. I know access.org has questions you can ask your students, your teenager. It's just having that ongoing conversation. I like to say it this way: start talking, keep talking. Mm-hmm. It's not a one-time conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. And they will, I've experienced with my teenagers. There's been times where they were making poor choices and kind of hiding it at first, but then just something happened where they just decided to come clean. And so I remember we were at dinner one night, and they started talking about the things they were doing and they shouldn't have been doing, and we didn't, of course, yell at them, look at them with that disgusted look or discipline. We heard them out, and just they can know that they can run to us and experience grace and forgiveness and love, and that, hey, where can we go from here? What can we do better to make the situation a whole lot better for their life?
So obviously we're believers, we're followers of Jesus, and mm-hmm. by no means we are trying to glorify being mean behind the screen, trying to glorify street life or anything like that.
Right.
But we understand that in the past that there were real world consequences
to
such actions. But as believers, one of the things that can help you bridge the gap between as a parent and a student, a parent and a teen, or you as a teacher and a student, is being human enough with discretion. Share your hangups, your mess ups, your stories that you were a teenager as well.
Yeah.
I remember when I was I was in high school and I started smoking weed and hanging out with my friends. One of the most powerful things that happened was I had a conversation with my dad, and my dad's a pastor. He's been pastoring for over 30 years. Yeah. But he says, Jonathan, when I was your age, I did drugs. I smoked weed. I sniffed cocaine, and I'm not proud of that, but I did those things. So when I say I know what you are experiencing, it's because I've been there. And so try to remind your kids that you're not trying to withhold fun and enjoyment from them. You're trying to tell them, I've been down that path. Right. I know where that path leads, and nothing good comes from that. Yeah. And I just want to protect you from that. And there are times when your teen does get older where you may need them to let them make their own mistakes. But meanwhile, they're teenagers, not adults. Teenagers, hear me out, parents. Yeah. They're under your care. And we have to steward those relationships. What are some other things, Jason, that we can do to encourage teens to be upstanders and not bystanders, to, how to respond with grace and with wisdom? How can we also teach the principles of Jesus in terms of forgiveness, turning the other cheek, as countercultural as that is, even on social media?
Right. No, all good stuff. I love what you said about personal stories. That is key, So yes, you can lecture. Yes, you can, say, counsel or whatever. But bringing in those personal stories definitely helps. And I've done that quite a few times with my kids. And just saying, just bringing up stories I did when I was younger and the lessons I learned. And what happens is you become relatable to them. They could see that you're just not this authority figure, but you been there, done that, got the t-shirt, you experienced it all. And I don't want that for you, son. I don't want that for you, daughter. I want the best for you. And I don't want you to go down the same path and make the same decisions I did. So that's really one of the keys. And, just again, just the ongoing conversations and just personal stories. I'm trying to think of some other examples of that, but
are there any hotlines that are anonymous tips? Anonymous tips? Because again,
that's good too.
Students, they don't want to be labeled. Their social capital is on the line if people find out that they saw someone get bullied and they want to speak up, but they also don't want to be labeled as a snitch.
Right. Yeah.
Are there tools or hotlines, websites that they can share and say, I saw this, or so-and-so said that they were going to commit suicide or kill themselves, or because of the bullying? Are there resources out there?
Yeah. I think, one of the things that pops into my mind is, of course, what bullying can do. And one of the things it can do is it could lead young people to suicide. Like you said, the suicide rates are very high. And I think the best things that they've done in the last couple of years is change the suicide hotline, which was like a 1-800 lengthy number that no one can memorize, and made it as simple as 988, just like 911, but 988. And so this is something that we promote in the classroom, especially when we talk about McKenna, is do not suffer in silence. If you've been bullied and you're dealing with suicidal thoughts, reach out. And so that number, you can dial it, you can text, you can actually call, or you can actually text that number and talk to somebody. Like, so if you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents or somebody personally, or a school counselor, reach out to that number. And once that number got implemented and made it easier, they've had over 1 million calls, which I think is great. And so one thing is, we don't want to see young people die because they suffered in silence. So please, if you've been bullied in any way, reach out to somebody or dial or text 988. That is always a good way to go.
Amen. So parents, again, this podcast is meant to want to empower you, but more to life, we are a youth development program. We present in schools. We do parent presentations. We teach at youth groups. So if you're here watching or listening and you want more information, or you would like for us to come out, please, you can see us at m2l.org. You can scan the QR code on this video. We've loved to continue the conversation and just wanting you to equip the next generation.
Absolutely.
We want to save lives. At the end of the day, we want to save lives. We want to protect our young people, and we also want to equip you in that regard as well. So again, this is Baffled. This is the podcast that helps youth workers and educators and parents understand their misunderstood teens. Again, if you're getting any value from this video or this podcast, would you hit like, share this with your friends and family, and subscribe to this channel? My name is Jonathan.
And I'm Jason.
See you soon.